My name is Rebecca Wilson, and this is my capstone reflection presentation. Here is my identification. I have no idea where my Dixie ID is, so driver's license it is instead. So the description of my project, I was working on the postpartum unit and I noticed a huge need for breastfeeding education. So I decided for my project to create a free class that would be offered at the hospital and would be offered to moms who are hoping to breastfeed and feel like they need some education about it. It would just be offered once a month at the local hospital, and so that's what I created. I was noticing when I was on the postpartum unit going around to rooms and helping moms breastfeed that there was just a huge lack of confidence. Moms are feeling like this is too big a learning curve. They don't even know where to start. And just having some kind of base foundation to work with and becoming educated before the baby is even born would make a huge difference. I took a breastfeeding class before I had my baby, and that was huge. I noticed what a big difference it made, and I wanted to offer that to the patients that I was interacting with. There's just so many techniques to breastfeeding, and I knew that offering a class like this could make or break someone's breastfeeding journey. So the initial perceived benefits of a breastfeeding class for the postpartum unit and for myself as the nurse, like I said earlier, I physically saw that moms were exhausted, they were struggling and trying so hard to breastfeed and just spending so much time and feeling unsuccessful. They were feeling a lack of confidence. I just wanted to offer this because I knew that the benefits for the postpartum unit would build up our postpartum unit and saying, oh my gosh, this hospital offers this breastfeeding class. And going into my postpartum recovery, I was confident in breastfeeding and I knew what to expect. The benefits for myself are that I spent a lot of hours educating myself on breastfeeding, trying to put this class together, and I now have that knowledge with me forever. It's going to be with me to teach patients in the future and help educate and instill confidence in moms who are trying to breastfeed and setting foot on that journey. I also noticed as a nurse that it was hard for me to stand at a bedside for hours and help a mom breastfeed. I noticed that I was losing a lot of time in being able to educate in other areas. There's so much that you need to know as a new mom, and breastfeeding was consuming so much of that time. I wanted to be able to offer some relief to the nurses on the postpartum unit as well by offering this class. It's really appealing for hospitals to have classes available like this to the public, and I recognized that and wanted to help build up my local hospital in that way, in the hospital that I work at. In selecting a preceptor, I really wanted someone who was confident in the education department, someone who knew the ins and outs of that area, could help me set up a classroom, help me set up a really good class, start to finish. Someone who also knew the postpartum unit and knew that moms were struggling with breastfeeding, and someone who knew the struggles of breastfeeding. That's a huge learning curve, and there's so much to learn. I wanted someone who was as passionate about teaching these moms and educating as I was. I also wanted someone who was really motivating, someone who would push me and make sure that I stuck to my timeline. That was huge for me. I wanted someone that if I said, hey, I'm planning on having this done by this certain date, that they would follow up with me and make sure that I was sticking to my timeline and holding me accountable. Um, so the purpose of setting goals, I wanted to complete my project in a timely manner. I knew that I needed to have things done by a certain time. So by setting goals, it was giving myself a timeline of I need to be done by this time. So I'm going to set this goal and write a date, and this is when I'll be done. That was huge for me. If I have a goal that I can work towards and something to mark off at the end, that's really satisfying for me. I wanted to create the most efficient class possible. So by setting goals and having the goal of creating a really efficient class and offering it to my patients that I was working with, that was a huge goal to accomplish of mine. I wanted to feel like I was making a difference in moms' lives and in their postpartum journey and breastfeeding and all of that. I had a goal to become a better organizer and improve my time management. I definitely feel like working on this project, I was able to do both of those things. This project really taught me to stick to my timeline and manage my time well. If I didn't, then I could be wasting a lot of precious time on nothing or things that weren't as important as other things. I really wanted to help ease the burden of breastfeeding in moms and help them to feel supported and like they had someone who was supporting them and helping them. I also wanted to just let these new moms know that they weren't alone and that they had support, that there was someone who really felt for them and was there for them. Close the door, please. So sorry. And then analysis of my project. It was mostly done at the local hospital, the hospital that I work at. Like when me and my preceptor would meet, we would find a space in the hospital to meet and discuss and plan and talk in. I did spend some of my time at home, like writing up the outline, making a pamphlet, gathering supplies, of course, was done at the hospital. Yeah, I think most of it was done at the hospital, but little other bits here and there. Any adjustments that were made to my original schedule? I really tried, like I said earlier, to stick to my original timeline and hold myself accountable to that. I don't feel like any big adjustments were made to my original schedule, maybe just pushing a few dates here and there back. I remember that I had to push my date for my class outline back a little bit because I had just fallen behind, hadn't quite gotten that done yet, and I think that that was the biggest adjustment made in my original schedule. As far as issues and difficulties go that were encountered along the way, I feel really lucky that I didn't have many, and I think that this goes back to creating goals and setting timelines and things like that for myself, and having a preceptor who really held me to these things. I think the biggest issue that was encountered was finding a classroom at a certain time on a certain day of the month to teach this class. I would say that that was my biggest issue per se, but nothing really serious other than that. Collaborating and decision making with my preceptor was huge. She just helped me in so many huge ways and made sure that I was holding myself accountable. And yeah, she was great. It was really nice to have someone who had the same views and I guess hope as me to offer this to these new moms. We were really great at bouncing ideas off of each other's heads. We made sure to always look at the bigger picture, like how can we make this class efficient enough that it can continue to give in the future? And we need to be keeping up with the times and making sure that this is a really beneficial class for everyone involved. Um, we were always on the same page. Communication was huge. We were constantly communicating. I would say that we were in contact at least 5 or 6 days a week. We were always talking about something and giving an idea here. She was helping me to think of something there or whatever. Yeah, there was just tons of collaboration and decision making with my preceptor. She helped me so much in bringing my project full circle and making sure that it was the very best that it could be, which was so helpful and amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. Couldn't have done it without a great preceptor, that's for sure. Achievement of my project goals. I have talked about this a ton throughout this presentation, but I specifically wrote out each date that I needed to have things completed by. I gave myself a timeline and made sure that I was completing my goals and deadlines by the time that I had written. I wouldn't go over, and I would really hold myself accountable to that, and my preceptor would really hold me accountable to that as well. She knew what my goals and all of my timelines were, and she held me accountable and made sure that I was sticking to things. The goals that I had to meet were, well, I had to write out goals. I had to create and write out an outline of this class start to finish by a certain date. I need to gather all of my supplies for the class by a certain date. I needed to create a pamphlet that I would be able to hand out of helpful material that I could give to class participants at the end by a certain date. I needed to meet with my preceptor several times by a certain date. There were several goals that I had to meet, some bigger than others, but in the end, they all really helped bring my project full circle and create a good, successful project. So each goal had a big part. The benefits of my project to the unit and organization, I feel like I touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's very appealing to have a free class offered to the public at a local hospital. It helps to build the hospital up and let locals know that we care. We care about what you're going through and struggles that you might be facing, and that is why we offer this free class, is to help you. It helps mom on the postpartum unit to feel more confident in their breastfeeding journey, which is huge. That's number one reason why I did this for my capstone project, was because I saw that these moms were struggling. They needed help. They needed knowledge and confidence instilled in them. Less time for nurses on their feet at one bedside and more involved in whole rounded patient care instead of feeling like you're just giving all of yourself for one thing. That can feel really exhausting. I've been there as a nurse, and I know that it starts to feel really exhausting. I feel like it was really important to support nurses that I work with in this way and support myself by offering this class. It offers great education for first-time moms who are wanting to breastfeed. If a mom has never breastfed before, there's a huge, huge learning curve that comes, and just so many things to catch on to and learn. How this project benefits my own personal growth in so many ways. I feel so passionate about women's health and postpartum and breastfeeding, and it was just so incredible to dive right into this, something that I'm really passionate about, and be able to show moms that they can do this, and all it takes is education and knowledge, and if you're putting in the time, then it will come full circle for you. And I just am grateful to have that knowledge that I worked so hard for, to be able to teach a really effective class instilled in my brain now, that I will be able to give and offer to patients of mine for years to come. I was able to touch on a lot of leadership skills in completing my project. Some that came to mind were being able to put a class together start to finish, getting up in front of the class and teaching. That improved my communication skills, improved public speaking skills. I was a leader to class attendees. They were looking to me for information and knowledge. I was able to collaborate with important figures who really benefited the class. Overall, I feel like my project was extremely successful. After my first class, I went around on the postpartum unit and asked moms who were breastfeeding if they had attended. If they had, what was their feedback for me? What would they change? What would they add? What would they take away? What did they learn? And I just got really great feedback from the moms who had attended, and I was able to learn better communication and collaboration skills. And now there's a class offered at the hospital that the community can continue to benefit from because of me, and that's a really satisfying thought. This project will influence my future practice in significant ways. I'll be able to offer great breastfeeding education for the rest of my years in women's health. I'll be able to support moms who are feeling really distraught in their breastfeeding journey and like they're stuck. And I'll be able to give constructive feedback. My conclusive thoughts are, I'm just really happy with how my project turned out, and I put a lot of time and hard work into this, and it was really satisfying to see it come full circle.